This is going to be amazing for all the listeners.
My husband didn't want us to do it at all because he just felt like every movie has a villain and Jayme, you're going to be the villain.
One thing that I was absolutely blown away at was just the access that was given and the fact that you all were willing to do that. Like the injury part, I was like, yo, you have video of you going in the MRI machine?
I didn't really want that to be out there, but then I realized the whole point of the film was to show people being a first-generation Asian American. I just went for it, and then I ended up finally being myself nearing the end of the film. The first half of it, I kind of wanted to be the person that everyone wanted me to be.
It's an awesome story, but when you add in that level of transparency and vulnerability on your end, the impact is just so much more.
Let your kid drive this process. Like if they want it, they'll go after it, and you come in and be the support piece, and that's when you're going to get Ashley Chea's, and that's when you're going to get Caitlin Chen's. I just learned so much from her. I think in the end we just found out that we were more alike than we were different, and so that was really nice.
Ashley, never let anybody tell you that that's not a good thing. That passion, the fire, the emotion, continue to be unapologetic with it. What's up, everybody? I'm excited for today. Another episode of A Convo with. We have two really exciting guests. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from them. First up, we have Ashley Chea, starting point guard at Princeton, someone who's made a big impact this past season on her team, and I'm definitely, the future is very bright. And we also have Coach Jayme Kiyomura Chan, who coached Ashley at Flint Ridge Prep. She's been a major part of Ashley's journey, both on and off the court. They are featured in a new documentary called Home Court, which was recently released on PBS. I'm very honored, very privileged to be able to be an executive producer of this film. And the film touches on everything from family, identity, mentorship, pressure, the experience of growing up as a first generation Asian American athlete. So I just kind of want to start it off by asking, what made you all want to do this documentary? And, what was it like seeing seeing yourself on screen for the first time?
When I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, Erica reached out to Coach Jayme and, asked her about who were the most, I don't know, known people in the SGV area. And I think that she said Caitlin Chen in the beginning. And then later on, she learned more about me. And then I think Coach Jayme was like, yeah, Ashley's story is also cool as well, I think. I don't really know 100% how it all began, but I think that that's how it first started. And then I was a little skeptical about it, but then Coach Jayme was like, "This is a great opportunity. It'll show your life. It'll bring light to who you are and who your family is." And then I think that I just jumped into it really quickly.
Erica approached us originally. She was looking to do a story, an Asian American basketball story specifically. And so my team at Flint Ridge Prep at that time had several, I guess you could say, JA basketball players. And Ashley was just one of them. And she was our up and coming, incoming freshman. And we just knew that she had a really bright future ahead of her. I thought, we're just one of many stories that she could consider. And then she called us back and she was like, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. And so she kind of just took it and ran with it.
Yeah, I'm very curious, Coach Jayme, what made you want to be a big part of Ashley's journey and to mentor her and to help her out? Because through the film, I was really touched with obviously the story, but in terms of the success, the injury, and the trials. But I think what stuck out to me the most was the relationships. I mean, I think that's true for basketball sports. Is you walk away with these relationships, these bonds. And I just wanted to ask, what made you want to mentor Ashley, or what was that like?
I mean, I think that's just coaching, right? That's just what we do when we sign up for this. That's part of the package. I think I'm really relational as a coach, and for me, that's what I most value. And so I try to be like that with all of my athletes. There are some people you just are naturally closer to than others. There are other people that, you walk into their life at the right time. They walk into your life at the right time. I always call them, God appointments. So Ashley was just that for me. I mean, I think that she enriched my life just as much as hopefully I was able to enrich her life. I just learned so much from her. I think we both kind of got some healing just out of sharing our own journeys. And I think in the end, we just found out that we were more alike than we were different. And so that was really nice. Maybe I don't have the skill that Ashley has on the basketball court, but as far as our just upbringing and just being raised by immigrant parents, I think that I was just maybe 30-ish plus years ahead of Ashley in that journey of life. And so it just worked out that I was able to share a lot of it and she was open to receive it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Coach Jay is just like she's just so easy to talk to that it just made it that much easier to like want to share with her my life and all my experiences like so far. And she was just a person that I could rant to, that I could talk to. I think yeah, like I healed a lot from her. And yeah.
What's like, I'm very curious, like, what's one story? Because when I think back on the people who, the coaches who really affected and helped change my life, like, what's one story of that for Coach Jayme that you're like, yo, this is one story of like the type of person or the type of impact that she was able to have on me.
I think that the time where Coach Jay like really, like made an impact on me in the beginning was when I was waitlisted to go on prep or to go into prep, and she like went to our headmaster at prep and basically almost lost her job because of me. She went in there, I don't even know, like every day for however long, like how many weeks, and then I thought that it was just so inspiring and like it was impressive to me how much time and effort that she put into me. And I think that it just showed me that she took a chance on me, and I was just so appreciative of that, and I'm just so grateful of that. She was asking everyone around to write letters to our headmaster for me. And yeah, I think that was when I like it was just a no-brainer that she would be in my life forever, and that she really just truly trusted me and trusted the process.
That's awesome. Like when I was watching the film, first off, when I was watching the film, I was like, that is so cool that you all had this footage. Because I think when you watch a movie, it's like, or you watch anything on screen, like you don't realize, especially when it's true, like you don't realize what it's like to have cameras in that room. So I'm thinking like when you all are having those tough conversations, those deep conversations, or even in the injury, like the injury part, I was like, yo, you have video of you going in the MRI machine? Like, no, I was like, I don't think I could have done that. Like when I go through those injuries, and I have my tough injuries, or especially like early in the season, I'm like, man, if I see a camera, I might rip it out the dude's hand and throw it on the ground or something. So like one thing that I was absolutely like blown away at was just the access that was given and the fact that you all were willing to do that. Even some of those shots before and after the game in the locker room and making sure that everybody is comfortable with the cameras. Like, yeah, what was that? What was that process like? Did it feel like an invasion of your guys' space? And were there times when you were sick of it, or were you guys kind of like, no, we're like all the way bought in, and we know this story is something amazing to tell, and so we enjoy doing that. Like, was there a balance there? Because I think it's hard to give that much of yourself to the world and to these people who are content capturing.
I think Ashley and I are smirking because we both are like, it was really, really hard. We're just ordinary people. Ashley's going to have more cameras around her, just like you do for her life, but we were just ordinary people. She was just 14. And at first, the cameras seemed cool, but quickly that faded. That honeymoon period faded. And I'll let Ashley talk to you about what that was like for her as a teenager. But for me, my biggest responsibility was her and her young life, and the fact that when you document something, it's out there forever. When you capture something on camera or audio, that exists forever. And so for me, it was just having trust in Erica. And it was a lot of prayer, to be honest, because my husband didn't want us to do it at all, because he just felt like every movie has a villain, and Jayme, you're going to be the villain. And if it doesn't have one, it won't be interesting. And so I just had to like pray and a lot and lean on God and ask him if this is a part of, my mission that he wants me to, expose, quite literally. And Ashley was involved, and it was more about her than me. And so at some point I just had to really trust Erica, who I didn't know at the time. I mean, our relationship was like hours old, but she did say one thing, and she said, at the end of this, if you absolutely hate it, I promise to burn it and nobody will ever see it. And I thought, you would spend all this time, all this money. She's also a mom of two young girls. Like, she's pulling herself away from her family. And I just thought that that was a really big statement. And so I promised Ashley and her parents, I said, at the end of this, if this is not what we expected it to be, if they're not portraying a true version of who we are, I have her words. That was really all we had. And then Ashley can tell you about what it was like for her as, a 14 to 18-year-old.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie to you, like the first half of the film, I was so excited to be a part of it. Just because like, like I'm like what, like 13 or 14 and like I have a camera crew following me around every single day for like 24 hours. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I thought that would get so much street cred and that, everyone would be like, "Oh my gosh, like she is so cool." But then like yeah, I mean like quickly I realized how like annoying it got. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. It was a lot to handle. All of my friends did not want to be in the film because they thought that everything like all of our conversations would be recorded and that, people would judge us. And so that was when I kind of wanted to take a step back. It was an invasion of like a lot of Coach Jay's and I's privacy. And, I didn't really want that to be out there. But then I realized, like, the whole point of the film was to show people, like, being a first generation Asian American. So, I just went for it, and then I ended up finally being myself nearing the end of the film. I think the first half of it, I kind of wanted to be the person that everyone wanted me to be, which was so unauthentic. And I think that kind of just shows in the film. Like, I kind of acted, I kind of, you know, I don't know, I cringed. I was really cringy, and like, I don't know, it was just annoying for the first half of the film, but then I just,
I keep reminding her she was 14, so like 14
yeah,
year
Yeah,
olds
I
are
mean,
exactly.
cringy.
and honestly, like I thought there were certain like bits in there that were so humanizing. I thought they were great. I thought that you were really open and transparent in certain moments, and those to me, like, I want to talk about one of them next, but those to me really like it's an awesome story. But when you add in that level of transparency and vulnerability on your end, actually on both your ends, it takes it to a different like the impact is just so much more. One of those, I definitely think about the one where you're like, I don't like being alone, and just like I do things to pass time because when I'm alone, especially at night, I think a lot of people will be able to relate with that. And the other one that I really want to touch on, especially from my own experience, is your relationship with your mom. And even towards the end, when you're like, I don't want to feel this pressure to have to fix it all or figure it all out before I leave. I just wanted to kind of ask, like, how has that been, like, last couple years after the film? And it doesn't even have to be like the perfect answer with the bow tied perfectly. It doesn't have to be that because this is life. I mean, life is not a Disney movie. But no, I love that side, and I can share a little bit about kind of my relationship with my mom through the years, because I think a lot of immigrants and first and second immigrant, immigrants will be able to talk about that experience as well. So yeah, I definitely wanted to ask about that. And Coach, you can even chime in as well because you're able to see it, and be very close to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not perfect, and yeah, I'll be honest with that. Like, it's not perfect, but I think that the more that I've been away, the more that I realize that, it's her first time, like, living too. And we all make dumb, like, I don't know, choices in our life, and I think that, she kind of is trying to fix all of that, just being there for Ethan, and just being a mom who is present. And yeah, I mean, I just got back from school 2 nights ago, and she was there to pick me up from the airport. And I think that I'm just trying to ignore everything that happened in the past. And it's hard because of just how much resentment I felt. But I think that as time has gone by, I've kind of realized that I don't need to hold on to this grudge that is not good for any of us. But yeah, it's not where I think I want it to be, but I think it's heading towards that, I think.
I think Ashley's even so far ahead of like where I was at her age in
I
my
agree.
own
Me too.
relationship with my mom. Yeah, I mean, my mom came when she was 12 from Mexico, and my father came when he was 5 from Japan, and so they struggled. I mean, they really, really struggled, and it was just my brother and I, and so, just like Ashley said, like I didn't that concept of this is my mom's first time living, like that did not strike me until I was a mom making some of the same mistakes, but I've been here my entire life, right? And so now I have 3 teenagers, and I tell my mom all the time, and I said it, I think, in the film, is that I couldn't possibly understand what my mom was going through raising me, in the early 80s, as like she just learned how to speak English when she was like 14. And so, like, it took me a long time to sort all of that out. And Ashley, like, it feels to me like she has a better handle on that than I even did. And then like what she said about like Ethan and her mom, like getting kind of a new chance to do things over with Ethan. My dad and mom actually divorced when I was about 26 years old. My dad went on to remarry, so I have a little brother who is, I think Bryson's like 12 now, and I'm like, who are you? You were That's not the dad that I had. So yeah, as we go on in life, we learn, we grow, and so I think I can have a lot of healing too, like Ashley's having, seeing her mom and dad kind of have their redo with Ethan. I have that with my brother Bryson. I get to see my dad be a great dad to him in his 70s, which speaks volumes about, what can happen in our lifetime and how we can change and how we can become better.
I learned all of this, like, from my friends and from Coach Jayme. She's constantly like reassuring and like, just making sure that I know that, everything that I'm feeling is valid, and that's kind of all I needed to hear, was that, like, my feelings were heard and like they were valid. And so she's constantly like explaining how I shouldn't feel this way about my mom. So, like, I think this past year, especially when I haven't been home since December. I was only home for like 4 days. Like, I took a step back and I kind of realized, everything that, is going to come together later on. But, it's nowhere near perfect at all. But I feel better about it. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of awareness and maturity for, you know, I'm 36, so you're like, when I was your age, I was like, oh man, like yeah, you're definitely very far ahead, and I think the great thing is you're starting to become more and more aware of the things you're feeling, and just don't feel bad for feeling that. Like, I think the resentment and the hurt that you feel, it's not like you're crazy or you don't deserve, you know what I mean? Like, it's very valid, and that takes time, and you have to walk through that. At the same time, for me, like, I had so much, like, me and my mom are very similar personalities. We're very strong personalities, and we fought so much. And we were really, like, we had a really strained relationship at times. And as I got older, same thing. Like, as I got older, more distance. And really, another thing that happened was, like, prior to like graduating, like, once you graduate from college, you kind of hit the real world per se of like, man, you got a whole different level of responsibilities. I went through some really low lows, and seeing that, like, my mom was able to be there for me, and your mom even says it in the documentary, like I'll be there for you. I'm already there. I think that's just something that, like, over time you'll start to see as life hits in different ways. Like, if she's still there, you'll be like, dang, it just means something different. And so for me, one thing that really changed the game for me and my parents, I separately took my dad and my mom on different trips, just day trips. But I spent like 4 to 6 hours doing something that my parents really enjoy. So, for example, for my mom, I took her to Half Moon Bay, and I took her to her favorite, like, a restaurant, and then she loves the beach. So we walked along the beach. And for these, like, 5 hours, all I did was, I swear to God, for 5 hours, I asked her questions about her story from, like, when she was a kid, and and I just kept asking more and more questions, and all the way up until, that present time. And I always knew she was trying to be the best mom, and I was like, I know you're trying your best. But, like, once I heard her story, I was like, whoa. Like, it gave me so much more empathy for, or sympathy for what she was kind of, what she had been through. And I always tell her, even now, I'm like, I don't agree with the way that you did things, but I know where your heart was. And that's more important to me, is like, as I get older, it's like, I know where your heart was and what you were trying to accomplish, even if I felt like the means or the execution of it wasn't what I would have done. And that really changed the game. Like, one thing that, my mom realizing that she had lost a family member, and how that she lost that family member, and being able to hear really in depth how that changed her mindset, her psychology, the trauma that she was carrying. And then I understood why she held on so tightly to us, because we were always like, you're so overbearing, like, yo. But I'm like, man, she went through some serious tragedy. And so that gave me more sympathy for my mom. And there's a lot of other examples of that. But yeah, that's just something that, I would say both sides of the coin, like, you should definitely feel and process what you're feeling. And that's not something that you can just overnight be okay with all the ways that you've been hurt. But at the same time, like, as time goes on and you're able to start talking about those things, man, it's so awesome. So my relationship with my mom really turned a corner when I was about 27, 28. That's when I really, and so now, things are so much better. She's even, like, she's right there living, she's in that room right now. And so while I'm in Taipei, she stays with me. But yeah, there's brighter days ahead. So, but yeah, that was something that I was just like, I was struck at the honesty of what you're sharing about your mom and the relationship. So a lot of respect to you for being that vulnerable.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I feel like that actually really like opened up a lot of doors for what I could do in the future. So that's yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no worries.
I think that's such a huge piece of the puzzle too, right? Like as we learn more about our parents, it completes our puzzle. And then we have a better understanding of why exactly they, raised us a certain way, or, my parents were very similar, and it's only with time that you start putting in more pieces of that puzzle, right? And so what I always tell Ashley is like, for her and I, and as she goes on and you go on and you have your baby now, it's like our goal is to not pass that on, like, as much as possible. So it is important that we find our own healing in that, so that way we don't do the same thing. I make mistakes as a mom all the time, and my kids always tell me, you're just like your mom. So and I'm like, well, I'm really trying. If you think that this is just like, Abby, well, I'm really trying.
Me and my wife, we always say, hey, we're trying to undo all the things we didn't like from our parents, but we also have to come to accept that, we're going to send our
They
child to
raised really
therapy
good
for,
people. Yeah.
yeah. But it's just like, as much as you try, like, you're going to do something that is going to really hurt your children. As much as good natured and as good hearted and as
That's right.
much as diligent as you are as a parent, we will all do many things that will, give them trauma down the road. But can we just try to be, give them as much as we can a loving and safe space? So, but yeah, I mean, this is something that, actually you don't have to worry about just yet in terms of being a parent or anything like that. But
You better not.
yeah,
I'll run through that screen, Ashley. Chea. I'm not ready to be a grandma.
no, yeah, thank you for opening up about that. That really affected me a lot too. I'm just watching it. I wanted to transition into a little bit of the representation piece. First question I wanted to ask around this, actually, how do you hope this film impacts other young Cambodians or Southeast Asian athletes? I know that in many ways you are blazing a new trail, and I honestly like you have the weight of, at such a young age, of having spotlight, being a role model, and you're just trying to even figure out yourself. In terms of just freshman year, sophomore year in college, and growing into who you are. But there's other people who know about you and are expecting things of you. How do you, like, whether it's the film or your own yourself or your legacy, like, how do you hope that you can impact that next generation?
I just want everyone who sees this film to realize that, their life doesn't have to be perfect, and that, it's not a script. You can go off the script and things will still work out for you. And just like lean on the people that are there for you and that want to be there for you, like I feel like people just try to like reach out like to the people that have so much already on their plate that they disregard the people that want to be there for them. I think that like me and Coach Jayme's example, like I knew that she was gonna be there for me no matter what, and that I could always lean on her, and all of my friends as well. Like I lean on them so much, and that I know that they're in it for my best interest, and I'm this exact same like for them. I'm always gonna be there for them. I'll always be there for Coach Jay, and so I just want them to see, just lean on the people that love you, and if you just work hard and you trust the process, it'll end up really, really good for you. But I just hope that people can relate to me and my story, and hopefully have the bonds that I have with my friends and Coach Jay at the end of it.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, and tying that. I do also want to follow up onto that. Coach, you have your own immigrant experience as well. Asian Americans aren't really represented at the coaching level,
Hmm.
aren't often represented at the coaching level. How did you use your own experience, your own story, to be able to mentor and coach Ashley? What was that process, or what were some of the things that you're thinking through, even as you give advice and things like that?
Yeah, so I think I was really lucky because, because we had, I don't want to say our own league, but we grew up playing basketball. And so for us, like, basketball was just a way of life. And so a lot of that was just parents coaching. And, we didn't pay too much attention that they weren't trained or anything like that. And there's a lot of like phenomenal people who kind of just made their way through the J Leagues as coaches, Harvey Kitani, Davian Nye. We have Carol Jews coaching at Chapman. I mean, you had Takeo, who played at UCLA, Natalie, who played at UCLA. So, we were just doing what we loved. I mean, we love this game. And for me, like, I have this thing. It's like, okay, God, like, please use me in whatever gifts that you've given me. And like, I don't feel like I'm extra special in any kind of way. Like, I wasn't particularly gifted at school. I went to college, but it was because I had to go to college. And I was just like, okay, so Lord, how are you going to use me? And basketball just kept coming up, and kids just kept coming into my life. And so at a really, really young age, I think I was 20 years old when I got my first varsity job. And at that time, it was the late 90s, and I was the youngest varsity basketball coach, meaning my players were only 18 and I'm 20. And so it was a really kind of interesting dynamic. And just from there, every year I grew more and more, like whatever it is I could give, however I can speak into their life, I would. So yeah, I guess I was really lucky because I didn't ever see myself as doing it because of the Asian community. I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I know, yeah, there aren't that many of us, but I think I was just a young kid just doing what I love to do, right? And
Yeah.
I'm really lucky because I get to do it with my cousin Kevin. He's also Japanese American. Our dads are brothers. And so you have head coaches who are, Asian, and then we see more and more all around us. We're also in Los Angeles. So we
Yeah.
have the gift of diversity here, which I took for granted my entire life. It wasn't until I was able to travel and when I went to go see Ashley at Princeton, or I drove to her game in New Hampshire at Dartmouth, and I was like, whoa, what the heck? Like, even as like a California girl who has traveled to other places in her life, I didn't realize how diverse we are in California, in New York. The rest of the country really isn't like that. And that was one of the things that, came up in the film was, Caitlin was already there at Princeton, but she only was going to be there for a year. So I already knew Ashley was going to only have 1 year at Princeton with someone that looked like her. I mean, there'd be other Asian kids on campus, but they wouldn't be in the gym kind of thing. And so it's just something that I have really taken for granted that we have a lot of representation where we are. But this story is going to open up so many conversations for other Asian, kids all over the place, not just, nationally, but abroad, like you said, because I think it's a conversation starter. Because Ashley had hard conversations with her family. I think it's going to give people courage to just have those conversations that will just, open the door for like a lot of healing.
I grew up in the Bay Area, so when I got to the Ivy League too, I was like when I was traveling in the Northeast playing even non-conference games, like the people looking at me like they'd never seen an Asian in their life, like I was an alien, and I was just like, well, where am I? And I still remember like we were playing a super important Ivy League game, basically like whoever won that one was probably going to win the Ivy League title, and so like the other team primarily all white, and they had like a couple African Americans, but they were like I got blocked, and they're like, yeah, get that shit out, you chink, and they were just calling me a
Yeah.
chink like nonstop, super aggressively, and then my teammate
Yeah.
looks at the ref, who's also white, and is like,
Yeah.
you're hearing this, are you
Yeah.
okay
You gonna
with
do
it?
something about
Like,
this?
and he's like, and he just didn't do anything. And so like, and then I ended up, I just self-imploded. I ended up fouling out. I had 2 charges that game. We ended up, they blew it open in the second half because I couldn't control my emotions. And it was my assistant coach, Kenny Blakeney, who pulled me to the side. He's the head coach at Howard now. He was a McDonald's All-American, African-American, very successful player, very successful coach. And he shared with me when he was at Duke, his experience of people calling him the N-word, throwing food at him and different things like that. And he taught me how do I harness the hate and turn it into something that makes me better, sharper, more focused, and just how do I take that and turn myself into a killer on the court. And we could relate from the minority experience, but we couldn't relate from the same minority experience.
Right.
And obviously, like, you guys aren't, it's not like you're both Cambodian or part Japanese or anything, but at least there's the Asian, there's an shared Asian experience. And so I think that's super cool, just to be able to witness, to see. And yeah, obviously the bond that you all have created speaks volumes. And so, It's just special to see that. Even for me, I'm just like, dang, I wish I had a Coach Jayme, like somebody who
Oh,
at least I could be like, dang, like they really get what it's like to like be Asian. But that's really cool that you all have that. And even for
well,
you to be able to play,
yeah, now it's incredible, right? Because you have like Amazing, right? That's
yeah,
doing things online that, I mean, I just think is an unbelievable place of representation, like what they're doing for young kids. Like they ask kids all the time, who is your role model? And at their last segment or post was like, who's your role model? Like your name came up, right? Like Caitlin's name comes up, Ashley's name comes up all the time. Ashley's signing autographs for little Asian girls, which like blows me away. And then yeah, it's a different time now. Thank God.
yeah,
There's so much more representation. It's still not enough, but that's why we can't keep our stories silent either. We can't let people just roll on us. We can't just be,
yeah.
quiet and nice, even though we are nice, but we're like tired of just being nice for the sake of being nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's actually a perfect segue into the next question because, and it's not on the script, but it's just the one that I have to ask, Ashley, because you're in this conversation, you're very soft-spoken, very gentle, but in on the court, you got some
She's
emotion, some
spicy.
fire, yeah, and I love that. I love that because I think you need that. Like I think you need that, and you have that, and it makes you great, and it also inspires the people around you and your teammates. Um, how have you navigated that? Coach, you were just talking about like we're tired of being quiet or submissive or things like that. For you to have those emotions and that fire, have you ever had to balance? Like, have you ever felt like, oh, because I'm Asian, maybe I'm not allowed to fully express myself, or maybe because I'm female, I'm not allowed to? Or are you just like, you know what, this is me, y'all? Like, I'm coming at each and every one of you, and I'm gonna bring everything I am. Like, are you pretty unapologetic about it, or was that a process? Or I'm very curious because I've had to learn how to harness that too, and I've learned the hard way many times. In high school, my mom would constantly tell me like, you know how awkward it is. You're literally like yelling at your teammate, like, and the whole gym can hear you, and I'm sitting next to their mom, like. Can you stop putting me in that position? Like that's what my mom would say to me. And even now, like because I'm just like sometimes it doesn't matter who, it's like anybody on my team. I'll even yell at my coach sometimes, like in front of everybody. It's like, what are you do? Like, told you get that, sub him, or why do we run that play, or why are we in this coverage? Like, so I have to like control like or figure out like how do I harness that fire and make it productive versus just like
Mhm.
toxic. So yeah, I was like a lot in that question, but I'm just very curious, like how do you balance what is primarily a blessing but sometimes can be a curse?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm a really emotional player. I think that kind of showed in the film. I'm like saying all these things, but I don't mean any harm in it. Obviously, I'm just super competitive, and I just always want to win. And I think that on every team, like that kind of exposes that more. In high school, I feel like I had the leeway to do that. Coach Jay wasn't really on me when I was, saying all these things. Like she would be like, "Hey, calm down," like just trying to reassure me that, I don't
Stop
need
flexing on
to.
people after you score.
Yeah, but then
You given
I
that?
as
I love that.
I
I
would just be like, oh God, here she
yeah,
goes
she was
again.
she was so annoyed by me. Like she literally was, like after every game, she'd be like, "What the hell was that? Like what are you doing?" But as I got to college, I kind of realized, that's not the leader that I want to be. And that took a lot of learning too. That my first year, I played behind Caitlin. She taught me she taught me what a great leader looks like, and then that kind of what I wanted to show my sophomore year. And I had some outbursts. I wasn't really the best leader, like I'll say. I didn't know how to communicate with my teammates. And, as time went on, as the season went on, I kind of realized and like learned what my teammates wanted to hear from me. And, it had to be productive at the end of it. So I took the time and got to know all of my teammates. I was already super close with them, but I wasn't close with them on the court. And that was like our like, it was the problem this year. But, I won't get too deep into that. But I kind of had to control my emotions and do what's best for the team and do what's best for us to win. That's still something that I'm learning, but I want to be that leader, that point guard on the court that everyone trusts and that everyone just wants to hear out. And I hope that next year or senior year that comes to show. But yeah, just controlling my emotions is it's still a process. I think it's fun to have these emotions than to be upset when we lose or to be upset when I make a mistake. But it's just how I show that is what's the most important to me now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like through my process, like people don't expect it. They see who I am off the court, and then when I get on the court and I jump one of my teammates or something, they're like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" Even my teammates didn't really expect it. But I would say like kind of what I've learned is that outbursts aren't always wrong, because for a long time I was like trying to like, every time I lose it, like there's something wrong with that. I don't really think that anymore. I think there's a time and a place for outbursts and what you're doing with that outburst. And there are times when it's very necessary for you to lose your cool. But if you can
Hmm.
do it in a productive way, I think that's so. I feel less bad when I lose my cool if it's something that I think is elevating and waking people up around me, allowing us to focus more. One other thing I've learned is, especially when you're kind of in a leadership position, is if you lose it or if you have an outburst, like always just check up on that person afterwards. Let it
Hmm.
simmer for a little bit, either later that day or the next day. But always make sure you check back in with that teammate, or the coach or whatever. And that's something that has been really helpful for me, of just like, hey, in the middle of the game, like we're down four, or it's tied and there's like 40 seconds left, you gamble and they score 2 points. Like, you better believe I'm gonna say something to you, but then like let that moment go by and then like talk it out later. And so that's just something I've learned. Even with the celebrations, I think like one thing I've learned, or this is just my own style that I've learned over the years, is if it's degrading towards an opponent, then I won't do it. So I don't love the ones when everyone's like this, or you're too small, or because essentially you're saying something about your opponent, versus if you make a great play and you're just like, or like, whatever, and you're uplifting yourself. I think, I'm more that style of like, like, celebrate all you want to uplift yourself, uplift your teammates. But when it's something that's like really like condescending or degrading your
Hmm.
opponent, unless there's some beef or personal history, then maybe. But these are just, I'm just kind of like verbally spewing just like things that I'm even thinking through myself as I, pretty much wrap up my career. I mean, so
Yeah. And
yeah.
girls, like, we're not accustomed, first of all, we're not accustomed to seeing Asians show emotion. And you're certainly not accustomed to seeing an Asian girl show emotion. So I think it could be uncomfortable to watch for other people, but it's too bad. That's not their story,
Yeah, I
right?
loved it.
And so
I
long
loved
as,
it.
yeah, so long as it's not, when I got frustrated with Ashley was because, it wasn't about her. It was, just something stupid, but like she's learned to harness that for the three of us. We're all three of us are strong personalities, obviously. And so our greatest character trait is also our most damaging character trait. I like the thing that makes us who we are, our outspokenness, our whatever it is, our passion is also it's a double-edged sword. So, welcome to your 30s that you learned how to harness and control that and you know what that is. Took me to my 30s too to be like, you know what, I don't need to make more friends. The friends that I have, that care about me and know me deeply, I love them, but I'm going to try to be more of who I am. Hopefully that's a good person. But it took me a long time to stop caring about what everybody else thought of me, thought I should be doing. So that's why I said Ashley's just so far ahead, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I mean, actually never let anybody tell you that that's not a good thing. That passion, the fire, the emotion, like that's what makes you you. That's what makes you great. And if other people had that, they'd probably be better at what they're doing or be able to excel. But it's the people that have that the different gears of that allows you to be as great as you are. So yeah, definitely be continue to be unapologetic with it. So I want to just wrap up with the last question, for both of you all. Maybe just like what's one piece of advice, for the next generation of Asian American basketball players? It's crazy that I'm even asking you this, actually, because I feel like you are the next generation, but like Coach said, you're signing autographs for even younger up and coming athletes. But what's some advice that you would give to kind of the next generation of Asian American hoopers?
Just be you, and don't be sorry to be you. Give everything that you do. Do it with love and do it with just the intent of just being great. Just work hard and trust the people, trust the process, and trust yourself because, you know yourself best. And, just put in the work, lean on people, lean on yourself, and just be you.
Awesome. I love it. Coach, you got something? Any
Yeah,
parting
so
words?
my advice is to the next generation of Asian American parents, as I'm also like wrapping up my career here soon, I think like the more we see, representation out there, the more also parents, young parents can identify and can say like, look, my kid can do it too. And like parents, like let your athletes lead, right? Like let them lead. Like if this is something that they want to be passionate about doing, it's got to come from them. Just because we have representation out there doesn't mean that it's for everybody. And what I'm starting to see now is kids are starting young, 3, 4, 5. Like, I run a basketball camp and they want to send them in pull ups. And I'm like, it's not time yet, let them start on the little tykes. Let them fall in love with putting the ball in the basket. I think that we might be pushing a little too hard, too fast, and it's not driven by the child. It's driven by the parents, and we often are now seeing burnout. We're seeing burnout, before they even make it to high school. And so I'm having to convince players to play and motivate players to play, which has never been the case before. Like if I, as a coach, have to be the motivation for them to want to play this really enjoyable game, it's like a lot of fun. You get to do it with your friends. You get to be a different person out there. You get to be physical in a world that tells, a girl not to be competitive and not to be physical. Like then there's a problem because I used to have to shoo the kids out of the gym, and now they have injury and they're, have overuse and they're just tired. So my advice is for the next generations of parents, like let your kid drive this process. Like if they want it, they'll go after it, and you come in and be the support piece, and that's when you're going to get Ashley Chia's, and that's when you're going to get Caitlin Chen's. You know what I mean? And it's because both of those cases, their parents were phenomenal. Like let the kids decide how they were going to take it, and then supported as best as they could. For Ashley, it was her dad taking her to the park to shoot. Right? For Caitlin, like it was her mom and dad taking her to club or wherever they could take her. But the both of them as young athletes were the drivers of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is great advice. I mean, ever since coming to Asia to play, I've seen a lot of Asian pros don't actually love the game because,
Yeah.
from a young age, they
They
were
got
kind of,
sorted.
yep,
Yeah.
and they were
They got
forced to
sorted.
play and they were driven by somebody else
Yeah.
and they loved it up until a
Yeah.
certain point, and then they
Yeah.
stopped loving it, but that's all they knew or that's all they have. And so they have to do it to make money, or this is all they know and they don't know how to walk away. But I totally agree with that. And
You
yeah,
can become resentful to the game really fast. And I mean, Ashley will tell you there was a point in time where she was working so hard to try to please so many people. Like we had to have conversations about this because, you want to try to please your club coach, you want to try to please your parents, you want to try to please your high school coach. So then there's trainers, and then there's scouts, and then there's all sorts of people now telling you should transfer in high school to my school, and every year there's another person approaching you. It's a lot.
a lot.
It's a lot. And so, yeah, it's a lot. There's a reason why, like, the big tech people don't let their kids have technology, right? So, like, as parents, I would caution all of us. You know, I have 3 kids, and one of them hates basketball because it feels like it took away family time, and that's my son. So my 2 daughters play, and he's just like, I grew up in a gym because I had to go. So now he's gonna be a sophomore in high school. I'm really trying to do things that he wants to do, like spend time with him. Like he's trying to figure out what he wants to do, but
Yeah.
whatever it is he wants to do, I'm just trying to figure out how I can support him in that and let him be the driver.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. This is going to be amazing for all the listeners. Thank you both for coming on to the podcast. Everyone, make sure to watch Home Court on PBS and share with your community. Thanks again, Coach. Thanks, Ashley, for for the conversation. I was very blessed by it.
Thanks for having us.
No
Thanks
worries.
so much. This is awesome.
Thanks everyone for listening. I really enjoyed that conversation with Ashley and Coach Jayme. I learned a lot from Ashley's side. The one thing that really stuck out to me was just that she is very comfortable in her skin. She is very authentic. She wants things to be authentic. She doesn't want to be perfect to everybody or to please everybody. She wants to just be herself. That is so important, especially to me, in this day and age where there's so much social media, there's so many highlights going around, there's so much comparison, there's so much creating an image or a brand that it can be overwhelming. But it is just a great reminder that the best thing we could do is to be ourselves. And then with Coach Jayme, um, I loved her heart. Like you could tell how much she cares about the people that she coaches. You could tell how selfless she is, that she is really trying to just be there for other people. Selflessness. That's something that really stuck out to me. The depth, the wisdom, and really the insight that she shared in terms of how she loves on her athletes. That was something that's inspiring to me. Like, am I doing that for the people around me? I don't have to be a head coach, but you know, I want to be somebody who is pouring into the people around me. And that's just something that was really inspirational that I learned from Coach Jayme from the conversation today. Thank you, everybody, again for listening, and hope you all enjoyed the conversation.